Okay. Yes, exactly as Adam said. So please try to take this as advice, and hopefully you can take something from this though. So starting pretty much from the very beginning, I'm going to start off here and run through pretty much everything. So if anyone didn't jump on last week, just a bit about myself and Adam. We've known each other for, I think we said about 4 years or something last week, somewhere close to. And then in the fitness industry, we've had probably about 13 years of kind of coaching between us, which is a fair chunk. And then really over the last year or two, we've dedicated more time into transformations in particular, and really gone to loads of seminars and workshops and stuff just in and around this, and trying to, each one that you go to, you gain a little bit of extra knowledge, and that's why we wanted to try and bring that knowledge to you guys. So the phase, there's going to be 3 phases today pretty much. Phase 1, initial consultation and physique and postural analysis. I'm going to take that one. Then phase 2, Adam's going to jump into nutritional coaching. I'm going to jump back into training systems and evaluations. And then peaking for the photo is going to be Adam's topic. He's going to cover that one. And then we're going to jump into a quick Q&A and discussion towards the end. So first of all, the initial consultation. What information do we need and why? And feel free to have a pen and paper as well, guys, if there's any coaches who need to jot down any of this. Absolutely open books here and take any information that you want. The more relevant information that we receive, the more we can optimize our training. So asking clever questions where we can receive the information that we want, open-ended questions, so that we can use that and utilize that information to work on our programming pretty much. So what do we need? Where are we currently at body composition wise? Biometric data, training questions, nutrition questions, and then one that I feel that most people always leave out and underlook or underutilize are lifestyle questions. And these really form the top ones as well. So biometric data is simple: age, height, weight, occupation, and activity level. And we use all this relevant information to put into algorithms to try and work out. We had a good kind of idea, first of all, where we're kind of at in terms of weight and height. You can probably put together a mental image of where we're at if we put that beside our goal. But trying to look at stuff like the occupation activity level in particular will really change how we look at trying to set up. We're not going to be able to program 20, 30,000 steps a day for a desk worker. So someone that sits at this all day, there's no way we're going to be able to ask them to keep a step count up or know that they'll keep their step count up to 20,000 a day. It's impossible, and to consistently do that would be silly. But let's say if we are a more active trainer and a coach kind of, or just someone that's a little bit more active or works kind of like in a sales job or something that's always walking around the place, then it's much more achievable. So trying to understand this information is key. So training questionnaire, I like to break them all down into kind of where we're currently at and then where we want to move forward to. So again, if we're asking ourselves these kind of questions, or if I run through transformation with myself or I need to do this, I ask myself these questions first and then where we want to get to. So describe your current physique. Why have you come to me? This is literally copy and pasted from my questionnaire. So use this as an example for a client, but then we also have to ask ourselves this. So define your goal physique. What is your end goal? And then explain your fitness journey thus far. And it's really important for us to try and understand, especially let's talk about it in the client's view. Where are they at the moment? Like even myself, where am I at the moment? And what is my end goal? What vision do I have in my head? And what have I done so far that's got me to where I am? Have you done resistance training before? If so, what does your current split look like? Is it push-pull legs, upper body, full bodies? How many days a week can you train? And then what type of equipment do you currently use? So I've made so many programs, especially early doors, and there's the first couple of weeks, probably in FlyFit, where I made all these programs and then they just come back to me and go, well, I've never done weights before. Why do you have me doing an overhead snatch squat, and then you have to go, and then the program's going back and forth. And And you really need to just get, again, all these questions might seem simple, but you don't want to have to send out something and then something come back to you and then they go, oh, I've never done this before, I've never done an RDL before, I've never done this. Trying to understand, again, what we are currently doing and what we've done so far, and then we can program intelligently around that. So someone like Gergo here came into me just absolutely no training experience at all. Quite a forward anterior rounding the shoulders there, quite a high level of body fat, but even something as simple as just working on our execution from the beginning, and me knowing that I'm not programming him really like RDLs, barbell squats, none of that. It was all simplistic lateral raises, leg extensions, hamstring curls, just to try a lunge pattern maybe, just to try and get him up and running in these kind of movement patterns. And we can see that we definitely drew up a lot of body fat, and that came down from our nutritional output side. But then we can also see that put on some tissue into the upper back, in particular in the teres. But simple programming, it doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to be efficient, and you need to learn to understand and contract muscle tissue early doors. Again, in that current slot, what lifts do you like and what lifts you don't like? If, let's say, if Adam's programmed for me and he tells me to do a single arm snatch grip overhead squat, I'm going to absolutely hate that. Probably when it comes to it, I'm going to push it to the very end of the program, and at probably the end, I'm probably not going to do it either. Let's be honest, okay? So, and this is really important to try and understand, because you want to, especially now, especially in the lockdown, even for myself, I'm doing lifts and exercises that I love doing and I enjoy, because I need to keep that kind of sustainable adherence factor in. I'm not doing all this crazy stuff that I hate doing and 100 rep drop sets of squats and stuff. That's just not for me, so I'm never going to do it. So make sure we have this in. A competency on lifts. So I'd like to put these 7 lifts in: squat, RDL, hip thrust, pull up, bench, bent over row, and overhead press. And that's kind of squat, hinge, and thrust pattern. That vertical and horizontal push and pull usually gives me kind of an overlook as to our complete competence on weightlifting, especially the number that they'll give me down below. And because, again, if we're working online, for any coaches that do any online work, we don't have that relationship. We haven't met them, we haven't done a consultation with them. So you need to try and get that overview, because, again, if we program in an RDL or a single leg barbell reverse lunge and Adam goes flying to the left, then that's just bad coaching, because we've given them something that's just outside their bracket. Do you have any current or past injuries or illnesses I should be made aware of, making sure we don't have any kind of niggles in the knee or hip if we're programming certain exercises, or do we need to go into active range or do we need to concentrate a little bit more on active range here? How well equipped is your gym? Such an important one. Such an important one. The amount of gyms that I've had some clients that have worked from the gym in their apartment block and literally had 5 dumbbells in the place. And then you have to be really creative and try to work around, especially like even right now, the equipment is going to be quite minimal. So you have to program to what the client has. So moving forward, how many days a week can you train, or would you like to train? If the answer is 1, then I'm probably going to advise we up that a little bit more. But if we can only train 2 days a week, we can still get good results in 2 days a week. Areas of the body you'd like attention to, again, this could be from a psychological standpoint, that someone's a little bit wary of maybe their kind of body image in certain places where they want a little bit more direction to. What type of cardio do you prefer, HIIT or lifts? I think we got a question in the chat. Oh yeah, no, it's just Adam. What type of cardio do you prefer, HIIT or lifts? Again, we did try and use it as personalized as you can. Again, for yourselves as well, I usually don't do HIIT training, but at the moment I'm doing it. But I'd usually just stick to low intensity cardio, throw on Netflix and just bang out 30 minutes. This is always the way I've liked to do it, so it's much more sustainable for me. And this is Ronan here. He came into me, never touched a weight in his whole life. And actually, even looking at him now, it just looks so different to what he ended up like. Just in his face in particular, never touched a weight in his life. And came in and I said, how many days we can train? I can only do 2. I was like, okay, cool, we'll work around that. And we can see that we definitely dropped a lot of body fat off, and his execution in particular became really, really good and meticulous towards the end. Nutritional questionnaire, current evaluation. Where do you think your downfall is in nutrition? Really, really important. A question that I've only put in over the last maybe year or so. To my questionnaire is, where do you feel your downfall in nutrition is? And usually this is good for us all to, if you guys ask me, and if I was put myself through this, where's my downfall in nutrition? Something like, let's say, if I said not adequate enough protein levels, or if I said, probably being dead honest with you, would be overestimating. Or I do a bag of oats into the thing and I have 100 grams and it gets to 98, and I do a good chunk and it goes to 109. Then I'm like, go on, 109, 100, it's all the same. And then that accumulates as extra 70 grams for the week or whatever. So that would be my downfall. How many meals do you eat in a day? And do you snack? If so, what on? Again, trying to get as much information as we can. If they snack on nuts and their goal is fat loss and they're on quite low calories, probably it doesn't work as well. Due to the fact nuts are very, very high in calories for the denseness of the food. How many times a week do you eat out and take out again? And how much do you drink alcohol? Again, getting yourselves or getting the client, if I was to write that, I'd probably say I eat out 2 times a week maybe. And do I drink alcohol? Yeah, I drink it once or twice, maybe during the week or something. And then if I'm going through a dieting phase, then I say, you know what, actually, I am eating probably out 3 times a week, and I probably drink alcohol three or 4 times a week at the moment. Let's just cut that down. It's good for you to kind of psychologically go through that and just understand where you're at. Do you take any supplements? If so, which ones? Again, trying to look at what supplementation we're getting in. Like in the last webinar we did, if they came to us and said, you know, we're taking just BCAAs or something like this, and then we can see that they're getting BCAAs and protein, and we can see that they're getting good amino acid profiles from the protein sources during the day, and they're hitting the protein levels. So we can say, listen, you know what, I think you could save €30 a month or whatever they cost a month here, and then just implement that into either better supplementation or else just better quality of veg, or something like a simple as paying for a Headspace app or something for the week or for the month or whatever it is. Describe your current eating routine. Use yesterday as an example. Really nice one, again, just to kind of for them to write out, oh, you know what, actually I'm not eating, let's say their downfall nutrition, they wrote, I don't eat enough protein. And then they write in their day for yesterday and it was granola and a bit of milk for breakfast or something, or Coke Pops for breakfast. And then it's like, oh, this is where we're missing a potential 50 grams of protein in. And quality nutrition, you can always kind of see a physique which has had really poor quality nutrition. And this is the one that always really stands out for me. In terms of when he came into me and like wrote out his thing, it was like Pop-Tarts and just biscuits and stuff. It was just awful. And we didn't change much at all, but what we did really look at was quality nutrition, and that was really important. And we get probably one of my favorites, again, one of my kind of most drastic in terms of like adding some definite tissue to the upper back, and lats is in much better shape, delts and chest. This is really, really good one. And it was just really in and around that quality and nutrition and him understanding where he was at currently. Nutritional questionnaire, so foods, putting onto the nutritional, or the preferences. So do you follow any specific diets, dietary requirements, or food allergies? So do you have something from a religious standpoint, or do you just don't feel right eating animal meat, that kind of stuff? And again, we're not going to program a vegan a T-bone steak to eat on a Friday evening, you know. So you have to take all this into account. Again, I've made the error, and I've learned from my mistake of sending over food plans where it said chicken, meat, whatever, and then they send it back to us, but I'm a vegetarian, and then you're like, oh no. So then you get it back and you have to redo it and do it all over again. Any foods that you do not enjoy? I do not enjoy, actually I like all food, but there's probably foods that you don't enjoy, and you don't want to have to eat that during the day, or you don't want them written into your program because you're never going to eat them. So making sure you understand what foods you do not enjoy and you do not put them in. Do you prefer less frequent meals or more regular meals? Again, some people work certain times where they might not get a chance during the day to prep meals or eat meals, or if they don't like eating breakfast, then you don't give them breakfast. They can go on for an intermittent fasting, but then they have to split up their meals throughout the day. How do you digest and feel after high carb, high fat meals? One that always comes to mind was one of my clients, Marissa, still my current client, and she has a lot of internal kind of gastric issues and digestion problems. And we had to run through kind of I like to do this anyway with clients, is we run through kind of if digestion isn't too good at the moment, and through kind of a tester phase where, let's say for a week we shoot fat up really high and keep carbs quite minimal, and then we hit that for a week, and then the other week we might do much higher carb and lower fat diet. And Marissa definitely flourished through a higher fat diet, we found, and just her digestive issues really started to go away, because she always thought that you had to eat carbs, probably not as optimal, but from a health and digestive standpoint, it doesn't have to be optimal, it just has to be comfortable. Food preferences and dietary needs, last bits are going to be something I like to add in is, what are your 3 favorite protein, carb, and fat sources? What are your 3 favorite veg and fruit sources? And then we know then if we're going to fat loss phase and our favorites is steak, liver, and pork, probably not the best, because they're quite high fat meats. We can look at that into our meal plans then, or else, but then also using stuff like the fruit and the veg and stuff, and putting them in and utilizing them as much as we can. And same with the carb sources as well. And we can advise, let's say, if like I said, if it's the top one is pasta and steak, or pasta and pork or something, and probably per amount of food, then it's not going to be as satiating. So we can advise otherwise. And then last bits are going to be, have you ever tracked food before? If so, how many calories have you been consuming? And what was your composition goal at that stage? And then what was your split? So trying to understand what they've done before. If they say that some people's metabolic rate might be a little bit different, and the algorithm might come in, let's say 2,100 calories that we need to hit on the training day, and 1,900 on non-training day or something like that. And then they've told me that 2,500 worked for them, trained 3 days a week, and we lost significant fat loss. And then we can kind of maybe go, you know, maybe his metabolic rate or her metabolic rate is a little bit higher, so let's put them on a higher end, and then we can start to bring calories down. So trying to get that information first is nice. And last bits is going to be our lifestyle questionnaire, and this is probably the bulk where I spend the bulk of the time. How many hours sleep do you get? But then more importantly, how good is the quality of the sleep? Again, 10 hours sleep is no good if we're toss and turn for 10 hours. 6 hours of really good quality deep sleep, or alternations of deep sleep would be really important. And then how much caffeine do you drink in a day? And trying to use these all, and they'll understand, you know what, I'm actually drinking, my sleep is really poor. My caffeine, I'm drinking 5 cups a day and finishing at 7 p.m. And then my stress levels are really high. Okay, this is starting to make understand. I didn't take no stress management interventions. Okay, this is starting to make sense now. That's why my mood is so poor, and my energy levels are spiked throughout the day. And then because I'm in a high stress state, this is leading to digestive problems, and then my output's really poor for the day. And then these kind of questions, again, everything relates to each other. So how good is your sleep? How is your stress? What's your caffeine intake like? What's your interventions like? What's your mood, your energy levels, your digestion, your bloatedness, reception for the day? And they all interlink together. So postural analysis, last thing we're going to look at is postural, and then Adam's going to take into physique analysis. So trying to get a good quality, first of all, the photo, naturalized white background, no clutter, front, back, and sides. And this is really important to try and get a good quality photo. I'm going to show you the next slide over is why we need to get a good initial photo for ourselves, first of all. And I've taken bad photos in the year up against the selfie in the mirror, doesn't cut it. And you want to be able to see visual changes. So from a postural analysis here, we need to analyze postural asymmetries, body fat levels, and muscle mass. So looking at the physique on the left, Mark, for instance, what do you guys notice anything there? So what I see when I look at that straight away is a big anterior rounding of the shoulders. We can see that he's very anterior focused there. So if I was to look at him instantly, the first thing that would go into my mind are horizontal rows, horizontal rows, horizontal rows, and try to pin that scapula back and go in that plane of motion. So I'd almost split it up in an upper body day, which I did, 2 to 1, kind of like pull to push. So if we're doing like 4 exercises, main bulk of it, we do like a lat pull down, then maybe a bent over row, or a chest forward row, then a bent over row, and then a chest exercise, maybe bench press, and then maybe a ladder raise or something, or even a little bit more heavy pull focus. The second one, Scotty just came into me a couple of weeks ago, We see the photo on the right. These guys are different people, and you can see. Can you guys note anything there? If so, drop it into the question box. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So the thing that kind of stood out for me was his knees, and you can see that the knees drop inside the midline of the body straight away, and that's called knee valgus, and that's usually a bad indicator for internal rotation of the hip, because their external rotation is quite poor. And one of the main primary roles of the glute is external rotation. So knee valgus is usually seen in a lot of sport injuries, and it's usually an indicator of weak glutes. So the first thing I said to him was, this is kind of what I see here, and we need to program a bit more glutes. He goes, oh, that's actually weird, because my physio always used to say that to me. And then just trying to get as much kind of prep work in before lower body, even upper body session as well. So with all the bands that you always see on social media and stuff, but it's actually decent for warm-ups, but not the bulk of sessions, hip thrusts, etc., RDLs, that kind of stuff. A lot of that work was put in there. And then physique analysis, what type of transformation do we need? So this is a good indicator. Geraldine is probably one of my first ever clients. Never got a before photo from her. Never got a before photo. And it was kind of a shame towards the end, because we got so far, and we would have loved to see the proper transformation, but still, we can see that this is a long-term fat loss type transformation, and one that was it was brilliant to work with her. And it was the most up and down, kind of, we were making progress and there's none making progress. It's so relatable to most of us out there, that as long as you're consistently going down, even if it's on a 6-month basis, as long as you've gone down a little bit and we've made progress, then we're in a good area. But this consisted of 8 to 12 week blocks in a deficit. Was it perfect every 8 to 12 weeks? No, it was slightly up and down on a week-to-week basis. 8 to 12 week deficits. Then we take a 7 to 14 day diet break, respectively. And the diet break is used, Adam's going to touch on this much more later, but to resensitize calories, reduce mental fatigue, and improve hormonal and metabolic function. And it's really important to take our diet breaks when we're into long-term fat loss. So I'm going to flip over to Adam now. I'm going to make you the host, and Adam's going to take us through nutritional coaching. Again, any questions? I think you said, Megan Foley, can you turn your video off?
1 second, dude. Right. Okay. So when we are running through kind of identifying the transformation, what we need to be doing with ourselves and with clients is, understanding where we are currently at in this moment in time. We need to understand there's many different contributing factors that come into transformations at the initial phase. And one thing that, I cannot reiterate enough and cannot stress and the importance of is, when we are entering a transformation, never set an end goal. I think so many transformations have really failed on their potential due to the fact that the 12 weeks was done, the 8 weeks was done, the 6 weeks was done, because you may not have had enough time to really tap into your true potential inside that time. So what we're going to do now is have a look at a couple of different transformations. You're going to see a lot of different time scales here, and kind of the approach behind all of these is to get you in a prime position to be ready to be transformed. And when we're looking at, identifying the transformation, we have to always ask these questions. Can their physique support the transformation? Do they have enough muscle to support the transformation? A very, very important one are health markers in order prior to starting transformation. Like Josh ran through there in his questionnaire, if they ask, any medical history, yes, I have high blood pressure. Yes, I have, another medical condition. Is it the right choice to go in towards a transformation? No, potentially not, because as you run through transformations, we drive down body fat levels. There can be increases in blood pressure due to sympathetic dominance. There can be other health markers that can play a huge role in this. So what I would really try and press with coaches, press with individuals who are on here. If you are thinking of starting a transformation, if you're thinking of starting a weight loss journey, a muscle building journey, get a health check done by your doctor. If there are any red flags, get those red flags sorted first and then progress on. Always think health over wealth. Yeah. Does their lifestyle suit the transformation? Again, something Josh touched on. If you have a single mom whose husband works from 6 a.m. till 7 p.m. at night, she has 3 kids at home and a young baby. She doesn't have time to get up in the morning and do her cardio. She probably has an hour during the day where she can train. Her food's going to be very snacky. Is that an ideal kind of person to go through a transformation with? Absolutely not, because what potentially might happen is you might get halfway down the road, and then what they have potentially missed out on by being selfish with family, selfish with the kids, relying on other people to step in where she needs to be. And she's not going to see the full thing out. And she might get halfway, she might get a small result, but what she has obtained from that small result versus the impact she may have had on her life during that time, it's not worth that reward. So if they're coaches on here and you have a client like that, just try and push something maybe like more of a long-term approach rather than a fast and aggressive approach. Because when we have that fast and aggressive approach, if their lifestyle cannot support that approach, it's going to cause a very, very negative impact. Do they understand the process? Do they understand, as we go through the next slides, a prime phase, a building phase, a transformation phase, do they understand where they are? And do you understand where you are? Now, we're going to run through slides now in a minute, and you may think that some of these people are in, really, really good condition and, a very good position to be transformed. But when you look a little bit deeper, it's not really the case. And again, the last one, and I think the most important, is never setting an end goal. Again, like I said, not all transformations have to be done inside 6, 8, 10, or 12 weeks. When we run through some of the transformations next, like Neil here, for an example, Neil here, this was taken probably over a 6-month period. Neil, it was in the prime phase that we call here, which was he was in good shape, but didn't have enough muscle tissue to support an aggressive diet. So what we done with Neil here in this prime phase was we had to think over a much longer term goal. Inside the prime phase, you're looking for a client who has a decent level of muscle mass, who is in a position where they are lean, but they need to have more tissue to support an aggressive cut. In these photographs here, Neil on the left was about 74 kilo. I think he was 81 kilo on the right. Now, if you look at the clear added tissue on the right-hand side, he was much leaner, body fat levels were a hell of a lot lower, and he was probably 11 pounds heavier. And what we done with Neil was we initially went into a very aggressive muscle building phase. We prioritized mini cuts throughout the gaining phase every 8 to 10 weeks and established a leaner, bigger physique ready to be transformed. So like I said, Neil was in that prime phase. We had to build him up to put him into that transformation phase. We then have a building phase, which the goal here is essentially to bring them towards a transformation. And when we're going through a building phase, a very, very important thing is we have to initially baseline calorie intake. So with just like dieting and gaining phases are the exact same. We try to weekly or bi-weekly increase calorie levels. I think a good number to run with females, if we're going to either increase or decrease calorie and expenditure, is 200 calories, male 350 calories. In these building phases, we're really going to focusing on adding tissue to weak body parts. When Adam came to me, his biggest priority was to add tissue to his chest, add tissue to his arms, add tissue to his delts. So when we programmed, the program was specifically designed to adding tissue and getting him now, he's getting ready for his transformation phase. And then we look at the transformation phase. What is the ideal transformation client? We see Grace here on the left. Grace done a photo shoot with me about 6 weeks ago now. And when Grace first came to me, Grace had just come off a higher calorie intake with lower expenditure levels. Grace was lean, although she was slightly bloated, but she was lean. She had near set of abs starting off. She had a really good amount of muscle tissue for a female. She had a really high calorie intake, low expenditure intake, a very good level of body composition to begin with. But most importantly, she was mentally prepared for the road ahead. And I think that last one is the most important when we're talking about getting ready for the transformation phase. Is, are they mentally prepared? Are you mentally in a position to to go to war. You know, when we go through transformation phases, it's not an easy process. When we're talking about an aggressive approach, and we're talking about a photo shoot, a bodybuilding show, an extreme transformation. Like if you look how lean Grace was from her ab line to biceps,
Crazy.
to veins coming down her biceps, that's sub 10% body fat for a female. If you're willing to go to that, you have to be mentally prepared. And that's one of the biggest drivers, I think, for being in this transformation phase is, are you mentally prepared? Adam, potentially not. Neil wasn't at the time. Of course, the road got him there. But when Grace first came to me, Grace was. And that was what really pushed us towards that transformation phase and got her in the condition that she was in. And I think, you know, just for you guys, you know, just looking back on that again, just to identify for yourself, you know, not there's a lot of coaches on here that are going to take away from this and add to their clients, but for you as individuals, again, you know, identify where you are. You know, were you like Neil? Did you need to build and then cut back? Were you like Adam? Did you need to work on weak body parts? Are you Grace? Are you mentally ready for the road ahead? And just having that identification to your own mind is very important, because it will steer you in the right direction. So what we're going to run through next is nutritional coaching.
I think that there's one question for you there, Adam, as well. Just from Emer said, when you say mini cut, is this around 6 weeks? But I think that I'll let you answer this. I think you said to not have a specific goal in mind.
Sorry. I actually can't see the chat box. Sorry.
Okay, so it says, no worries. It says, and when you say mini cut, is that around 6 weeks or?
So when we're running through mini cuts, what we're essentially trying to do is allow a drop off from the approach. So from a mental perspective, to allow them to have a break away from the diet, not like a diet break in a sense, just a little bit of time away from a diet. A mini cut can also be important to reestablish body composition. So when we are going through gaining phases, something you have to be very careful of, you have to have good utilization of food and you have to be insulin sensitive. If you have poor utilization of food and bad sensitivity to insulin, you are going to be in a very catabolic state, which I'll run through now in a second. It's one of the slides here on energy balance. But basically, you're not going to be in a prime position to build muscle. You need to be sensitive to insulin. You need to have good level of body composition so that when we put food into the body, food gets stored in the right way as glycogen. It's not stored as body fat, and just to constantly reestablish body composition. Because when we go through mini cuts, there, of course, you're going to gain some fat, but constantly having a 2-step forward, 1-step back approach with gaining is probably the best way to do it, just to keep it as lean as possible.
I don't think 6 weeks though, Emer. I'd say to be fair, maybe if we're in the gaining phase and we
3 to 4.
Yeah, something around that. Just because you want to get in and get out really quickly. And just the less time you can spend in there, the better, because the main goal, if we're taking 9 months in a kind of a gaining phase, and we take 6 weeks out of that every 12 weeks or something, then it's going to be too conflicting. So even somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks is a good number. I think 3 is always. I think a nice 4 weeks. 4 weeks.
Yeah, 3 to 4 is a great number. And as well, when we run through these mini cuts, you have to understand that you can bottom out calories as well. You know, if you have a male eating 4,000 calories a day, you can mini cut him on 1,600 calories, because he's going to be so strong during that time period that his training is going to keep tissue on his body, just like a female. If you're a female in the peak of your gaining phase, you can hip thrust 150 kilos, squat 90 kilo, pull 100 kilo off the floor. If I took you from 2,500 calories to 1,200 calories, you're still going to lift that weight. So that's going to be the stimulatory effect to keeping tissue on your body. And then once we reintroduce food back in again, you're going to have this big spurge of new tissue being gained again, because you're coming off a good rebound phase. Rebound phase as well. So, right. So I'll jump into energy balance when we're talking about nutritional coaching. So to keep it kind of in a very, very simple term, when we're talking about energy balance, we're just looking at a positive and a negative. So the positive to a negative to an energy balance would be to add food or subtract expenditure. That's usually a best way. And when we think of positive energy balance, we're always thinking to add to the body. So if I was to put a positive energy balance in, I'm looking to really gain. If we're talking about negative energy balance, of course, we're thinking to lose. And to create negative energy balance, we're thinking to subtract food or add expenditure. And when we're looking at energy balance, there's 2 different hormones we have to always be very careful of. We have our leptin and we have ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hormone that basically sends a signal from brain to belly to tell digestive tract that you're hungry. It is a very, very appropriate hormone first thing in the morning. Usually when we wake up in the morning, ghrelin levels will be really, really high if you're in a good hormonal state. And leptin is basically the opposite. Leptin basically down regulates ghrelin. It does the complete opposite effect of ghrelin. Like I said, ghrelin increases hunger hormone. Leptin basically suppresses hunger hormone. And we're talking about energy balance in a positive response. Energy balance in a positive response can promote an anabolic state of your metabolism. So if we're talking about an anabolic state of your metabolism, anabolic basically means to be in a position to build tissue. Anabolic state of metabolism can be really, really good. And from a hormone perspective, for males, it can really increase natural testosterone levels. For females, it can really naturally increase estrogen levels. And one thing to always remember, ladies, having a high estrogen level is not a bad thing. Estrogen basically has the same effect in the body as testosterone has for males. If you had a male that had high testosterone levels, he would have, a really, really good ability to build muscle. Sex drive would be increased. Mood would be increased. For a female, it's the exact same. So having a positive response to energy balance can, like I said, increase that anabolic state for both a male and a female. It can improve your sensitivity to insulin. It can decrease ghrelin production. So, of course, being in that positive response to energy, your hunger hormone is going to be downregulated. And, of course, the complete opposite to that, your leptin levels are then going to be increased due to the inhibit hunger response. When we're looking at the negative effect of energy balance, of course, you're going to be in a catabolic state of your metabolism. Catabolism is essentially you can kind of put it in a simple term of a state of preservation. Is probably the easiest way to put this. When you're in a catabolic state, your body can be in a state of breakdown. But usually we can call it a state of preservation or a state of preserve, where you're not going to build tissue. You're going to find it very hard to lose weight. Or you're going to find it very hard to gain weight, should I say. And, it's basically the complete opposite of what an anabolic state is. You can decrease sensitivity to insulin. It can increase ghrelin production, so increase your hunger hormone function, and then decrease leptin function. Something else we always need to be careful of is when we're talking about energy balance, there is a third state. So you have your positive, you have your negative, but you also have your homeostatic state of energy. And what a homeostatic state of energy is, it's basically the middle ground in energy production. So when we're talking about energy balance, of course, we have our positive, we have our negative, but then we also have our homeostatic, which is in the middle. Homeostatic basically regulates the amount of food and energy production to go either positive or go negative. And what you have to always respect as well is that when we're talking about energy balance, the homeostatic state of energy balance does take up energy as well. That's why homeostatic is in a state of energy. So if we are talking about when food comes into the body, to put it in a very, very simple term, food goes into the body, it basically brings your body into a state of homeostatic range first. Homeostatic range requires energy, which requires calories to be burnt. Of course, calorie is a unit of energy. And then after homeostatic function has been returned, if homeostasis thinks, okay, this is a positive or this is a negative, then you have that shift change up or you have that shift change down. But homeostatic state of energy does require energy to be there. So when we're thinking about energy balance, don't just think of positive and negative, think of the three. Think of positive, negative, and then think of homeostatic as well, because it is important and it does play a role in energy balance. Just off the term of energy balance, we're going to just run through some cardio. We're going to run through some cardio, because I think this is going to tie in quite nicely when we're speaking about energy balance, and we're going to run through fasted versus fed cardio. Now, when we're speaking about cardio, well, cardio causes a negative effect on energy. Okay, it causes your body, it can cause an ability to lose weight. But what is weight? Weight can be a number of different things. Weight can be muscle mass. Weight can be fat. Weight can be water. Weight can be glycogen. Weight can be fluid. Weight can be inflammation. There's probably about 8 different things that weight itself can be a contributing factor of. In a transformation phase, what we're trying to do is increase the level of fat being burned. So we're trying to increase the level of fat oxidation, not just weight in itself. So just some key considerations, I think, when we're scheduling programming, either for yourself or for clients, is to set calorie targets, not time. I can't tell you the amount of times I've scheduled cardio for clients, and I could say, right, I want you to do 45 minutes this morning, send me over your Fitbit reading. Right, this morning I was really motivated. You know, I had a really good night's sleep last night. I had my coffee before I went into the gym, and I burned 400 calories inside of that 45 minutes. Okay, fantastic. I take 400 calories burned. Tomorrow, that client might be in a very unmotivated state. She might go to the gym with a friend. She might just jump on maybe, the incline walk on the treadmill instead of jumping onto the Stairmaster. 45 minutes done, but there's only 200 calories burnt this time. So when we're talking about cardio, I think setting a calorie target is a lot more effective, because as a coach and as a client, what we can manage, we can measure. If you're burning 300 calories consistently 4 times a week, we know you're in a 1,200 calorie deficit for sure of negative energy balance. If I say to you do 4 40-minute sessions per week, it's way too sporadic. And for myself, I'm a bit OCD when it comes to numbers. I have to know the amount of calories that are burned, and specifically the amount of negative energy balance that you are in from your cardio on a week-to-week basis to make adaptations to the plan. If I don't know exact numbers, I cannot make adaptations to the plan. And this is what we're going to roll on to next. Scheduling cardio you can measure and you can manage. I know myself and Josh are really, really fond of steady state cardio, because we both understand that from a coaching perspective, we can manipulate that so easily in respect of positive or negative energy balance. And it's so easy to manipulate. Like, Josh, if a client said to you, listen, I'm doing 6 HIIT sessions a week, how can I adjust that?
It's impossible, because then you don't know, especially if they don't have a watch, and then they're trying to chase calories in the session, and I need to get up to 350, and I've done an hour of the HIIT or whatever, and there's some days 350, some days are 250, some days are 100. I know one of my clients there, Monica, got on to me, and she was saying that, how many calories do you burn in the session? How many calories does your average person burn? Because I'm only burning this, that, and the other. And you don't want to be chasing the kind of in the middle of the session, looking down at your watch and going, oh shit, need to do a little bit more. Yeah. So exactly like you said, you can manage that same piece of equipment every time, and then you can keep that reliable then.
Yeah. And as well, I've nothing against HIIT training. I do think it has a place.
Yeah,
when it comes to transformations, I don't feel like it has a massive place, because again, it's too hard to measure. If I had a client doing 6 HIIT sessions, it's extremely motivation driven, and not every day you're motivated. When we do HIIT workouts, they're fun, they're enjoyable, they can really boost, the feel good hormones in the body. But from a state of coaching, it's not an ideal scenario to put a client into, because again, it's very motivation driven, and it's very, very hard to measure and manage. It's very hard to adapt. It's very hard to add or subtract into energy balance. And again, we're always just relaying this back to energy balance. And if we're trying to make a positive or trying to make a negative, if you have a scramble of numbers, it's impossible. So I'd rather have consistency across the board in calories.
One question here as well. Sorry, just to touch on it quickly. It says, would you recommend what would you recommend targets for a 40-minute session on a spin bike and for fat loss phase? I'd say that's probably due to intensity. So you don't really drive drive a target of calories rather than the 40 minutes is what we're trying to say. Say maybe 300 calories, and however long it takes you, if you want to really push it. If you want to take it nice and slow, you still need to stay on the bike until you hit the 300 calories kind of thing. Yeah.
And again, that question is good, because it brings us on to the next point. Is when programming, use an incremental approach, or you use an incremental process. We can start 100%. Off every client, 3 times a week, 100 calories to be burnt. After week 1, you can increase to 150. After week 2, you can increase to 200. When you have an incremental approach, you are in control of energy balance. You are adding every single week or subtracting, positive or negative. When you just, like I said, a prime example, you just answered the question for me. If you said 40 minutes, it's motivation driven. And this is why I think, for a lot of coaches, they need to understand that from every single, which we'll run into in a moment when we go through coaching, nutritional coaching, when we're talking about your cardio or talking about nutrition, you have to start off a baseline at every single approach. You have to start off nutrition at baseline, output at baseline, and then you use the said principle, which we'll run through in a moment, to add to those adaptations. I think as well, when we're starting off with clients also, just the last one, when we're starting programming, I think it's always good to improve NEAT levels before scheduling cardio, which is another really kind of good coaching cue for any of the coaches out there, or coaching point. When you're starting off someone in a transformation, increase their NEAT levels. Don't give them 1,000,001 things to do at the start. if you had a client that's on 6,000 steps a day and you bumped them to 10,000 steps a day, just that overall NEAT level could potentially burn more calories than you saying to them, what you have to do, 40 minutes of cardio today. You have to do, 250 calories of cardio today. You have to do your HIIT training, or you have to do whatever the coach is going to prescribe to that specific client. It's much easier just to increase their NEAT levels. And again, everything is incremental in its approach. You can start them off at NEAT levels, and it's so easy to add one cardio session in a week after increasing their NEAT. That's going to hugely add to that energy balance. Whereas if you said to the client, right, Josh, starting off this week, we're going to do 7 sessions at 400 calories each.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Where do you? I'd love to be a fly in the room. I'd love to be a fly in the room sometime when these coaches actually add in these protocols, because I don't understand where the approach can go from there. So everything has to be starting off at baseline. Everything has to be starting off at baseline, and everything has to be incremental in its approach, especially with cardio.
Completely agree.
So when we're looking at the fat loss breakdown, again, if this gets a little bit too kind of technical, Josh, will you just do me a favor? If anyone asks a question, will you just let me know, because I can't see the question box.
No, right, there's one more, but I think we'll touch on it at the very end. I think it's a little bit back. Okay.
So when we're talking about fat loss, and this essentially is the fat loss breakdown. So when we're looking at fat loss, we need to have a sympathetic dominance to be occur. Anyone who was on our last webinar should know exactly what sympathetic and parasympathetic dominance means. Sympathetic dominance is basically your fight or flight syndrome. It's where adrenaline and noradrenaline are going to be released into the bloodstream, and that can increase energy expenditure. Once we have that sympathetic dominance, and once we have that increased energy expenditure, elevated levels of fatty acids are produced, and then we have an increased chance of fat oxidation to occur. Fat oxidation essentially is the final step in the process of, in a very, very simple way, of fat oxidizing and evaporating away from the body. So that's what we need for fat loss to be present. When we're talking about fasted cardio, what happens is fasted cardio, usually in the morning, we have an increased sensitivity to insulin. When we have an increased sensitivity to insulin, the body has an ability to handle more stress. So the body has a much better ability to be sympathetic dominant because of that increased level of sensitivity to insulin. Once we have a higher regulation of sensitivity to insulin, we then have an increased level of fatty acid production, then in return having an increased level of fat oxidation. When we have food in the system, automatically there is going to be a decreased sensitivity to insulin. When there's a decreased sensitivity to insulin, your body is initially going to go into a fight trying to be either sympathetic dominant or parasympathetic dominant. It's always going to try and return to that state of a low stress environment. And when you have this back and forward fight of the body between high stress versus low stress, the body is going to have a decreased sensitivity to insulin, therefore having a decreased fatty acid production and an overall decrease in fat oxidation. So when we're talking about fed cardio and we're talking about shifting weight, remember, weight is not always fat. Yes, fed cardio can cause a level of a negative energy balance, but it can also have a very poor effect on fat loss because it's not going to handle stress adequately. You're not going to be able to easily go into a state of SNS production because that decreased sensitivity to insulin, because food has been intaken. And what I mean about a decreased sensitivity to insulin, for anyone who doesn't really understand what that means, when we intake carbohydrates or food, carbohydrates and protein more or less into the body, your body will go to a breakdown process of protein. It will go through protein glycosination, where protein will try to be transported into glycogen stores. Carbohydrates are put in, and carbohydrates basically can go either way. If we are insulin sensitive, carbohydrates will be pushed more towards glycogen store. If we are insulin insensitive, it'll be pushed towards fatty acid production. So we just really need to be careful of the timing of cardio done when we are programming for fat loss. And especially when we're talking on a transformation base, this is why myself and Josh wanted to put this slide in here, because when we're talking about transformation, we're talking about fat loss. We're talking about, how can you get the leanest possible, version of yourself? How can you optimize the most fat loss possible, humanly possible for you as an individual. And this is why we're just giving you helpful tools to try and, you know, push you in that right direction. And that leads us on to quite nicely supplementation for fat loss. And I know both myself and Josh do not recommend fat burners because, you know, I just think it's a marketing scam. You know, you put fat loss or fat burner on anything,
coffee.
It's going to be a very, very quick and easy sell.
Yeah.
Yohimbine, on the other hand, is a very, very effective supplementation. Yohimbine is an alpha-2 receptor, which causes your body to increase the noradrenaline or adrenaline production. Yohimbine is very similar to other stimulants. You know, it causes your body to have that automatic shift change into sympathetic dominance, then can cause an overall increase in energy expenditure. So if you took Yohimbine pre-cardio, your body is now in an optimal state for that sympathetic dominance. Again, think back to fasted cardio. We need to be able to handle higher sympathetic dominance. When we take our Yohimbine, it increases that level of sympathetic dominance and then can increase overall expenditure. And if you imagine, you know, walking into a gym with a natural ability to have increased level of energy expenditure, your level of fat oxidation is going to be so much higher due to the fact of that sympathetic dominance. So when we're talking about, like, again, this is just driven directly back to transformation-based supplementation for fat loss itself. Yohimbine is something that I have used myself and I've used with clients. And every time I have a client using Yohimbine, I find the rate of fat loss is extremely, extremely high. Now, I don't think everyone is in a position to utilize Yohimbine. I think you need to be in a transformation phase where you're lean, you know, nearly have visible abs, both male and female, and Yohimbine will basically give that final push. You know, if you had a client or yourself who's about, you know, 6 to 8 weeks out from being in phenomenal condition, Yohimbine would be that supplement to add in at that point in time to just drive that transformation into a complete other realm, you know, to really give that wow factor of fat loss. And a recommended dose will be 0.2 milligrams per kilo. Okay, what we're going to also just have a quick look over is spot reduction. Now, I know when we talk about spot reduction of fat, a very like common thing people say is, if I do 1,000 sit-ups, is that going to get me lean? Obviously not. But when we look a little bit deeper into spot reduction, and again, this is why I have may in big red letters, because it hasn't been clinically proven, but it's just been, I know myself from personal experience and experience with clients. When we use Yohimbine creams basically allow an increased level of blood vessels, and it basically allows more free-flowing fatty acid production to happen at skin level, therefore increasing the level of fat oxidation at that specific site. Now, again, this isn't something that has been clinically proven, and it's not something that like has been shown to exactly work. Maybe a complete placebo effect, but I used it on all the shows and photo shoots that I've done, and found for spot reduction it had a big increase. I've used it with clients as well for transformations and for photo shoots, and I do think it has a really, really good effect. Again, it's one of those tools that you need to be a very, very low level of body fat to use. For a female, for instance, if Grace wanted to bring up vascularity in her arms during her cardio, she could apply Yohimbine cream to that site. That site would then allow an increased level of blood vessel. That increased level of blood vessel would increase fatty acid production. The increased fatty acid production would allow more fat oxidation at that site. Does it work? Again, it's not clinically proven, but it's just a tool I wanted to offer. That's something that I use. And again, when myself and Josh are putting the seminar together, we're going to be open books. We're going to show you guys the tools that we use so that you can implement them into your own training or into your own journeys moving forward. Okay, we're going to go through some nutritional coaching now. Some key considerations when we're speaking about nutritional setup, how to structurize nutrition plans, or how to set up the structure of a food plan. We need to understand that the approach must match the goal. I think this is something that's very, very important. Again, referring back to that identification process, you know, when we run through our different types of nutritional setups here, we have to understand, you know, the overall outcome of these setups. The client must be adherable to the approach. The approach will only work if the client works. I think that's something that myself and Josh can definitely vouch for. We have implemented approaches before that are quite advanced, and if the client is not willing to stick to the advanced approach, obviously it's not really going to work. And appropriate feedback must be given for an appropriate response. So when we're looking at our nutritional setup, and when you guys are giving like feedback check-ins, or if you're even having check-ins with yourself, you have to understand that you have to give like really, really appropriate responses, appropriate scale weight responses, appropriate readings of body fat levels, appropriate pictures, to understand that we need to make sure that the plan is matching the actual goal itself. So when we're looking at starting points, again, this is something that I touched on earlier on. Like an ideal weight loss transformation with the correct direction, this would be a starting point. We'd usually increase calories from week 1 to 3, and then increase NEAT levels. So when we're looking at that kind of bi-weekly increase or decrease, every week or every second week, I think it's good to decrease calories. Again, you've put them into nearly a maintenance level or surplus at the start. So there's loads of wiggle room to have a drop-down effect here. On a weekly or bi-weekly basis, we will cause a demand on a demanding response from either decreasing calories or increasing expenditure levels. A kind of not an ideal scenario with an indirect kind of direction would be week 1 to completely bottom out on calories, and then week 1 to massively spike cardio levels high. Always remember the SAID principle down the bottom here when we're talking about nutritional coaching. Specific adaptations impose demand. When we are speaking about starting points for clients, we have to have a plan in place to have specific adaptations ready to impose a demand when a demand needs to be imposed. That's why I think, working on a nearly a week on, week off approach with descending calories, increasing expenditure levels for females and males for fat loss is such a good approach to use, because it will give them a consistent imposing demand effect for negative energy balance for fat loss. If we're looking at, a kind of an ideal scenario, when we're talking about transformations are marathons. You wouldn't start a marathon sprinting. You always run a marathon at a very slow, consistent, steady pace. You do not sprint 100 meters, break, 100 meters, break. It's one consistent pace the entire time. And weight loss and any transformation, whether it's muscle building, fat loss, the extreme transformations of, the photo shoots or bodybuilding shows, everything's a marathon, and everything done at slow and steady pace. You start off sprinting with an incorrect direction at the start. If you start off bottoming out calories or removing a macro, which is myself and Josh's pet hate to see, or increasing cardio levels, you've started off in a sprint, and you can only sprint for so long before you're going to have to slow down. And this is why we're going to look at, an ideal starting point for fat loss. So we'll call start point A the ideal scenario, where calorie levels are really high, expenditure levels are really low. As the weeks go on or months go on, you'll see there's very, very slow and consistent drop-offs, eventually getting us to our finish point. Now, of course, in between these drops, there's going to be spikes and fluctuations, and there's going to be a lot that's going to occur inside the process. But usually from starting point A to starting point B, it's going to be linear in its approach. It's going to be a consistent drop down. Then we have, starting point B, where we rock bottom out on calories. There's absolutely nowhere you can go from here. So the only place you have to go is an increase. And again, think specific adaptations impose demand. If you started off rock bottom in calories and you increase calories, what would happen? Potentially gain weight, right? You've dropped them into a deficit. The deficit is inadherable long term. You have to now bring them to an increase to allow an adaptation to oppose another demand. So both you can get to the finish point both ways. But trust me, starting point A is going to be a lot more of a smoother approach. And think about everything you're missing out here in between. Starting food intake super high on a weight loss journey is giving you that, allowance on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to have significant drop-offs. When we have those low calories, high cardio start points, there's only one way we can go from there, and that's on an increase. When we have that increase again, we're adding now to energy levels, which is going to cause an increase in weight. We're then going to probably plateau out and then have a drop-off effect before, but you're always staying in the bottom range. So when we're speaking about, starting points just for yourself if you want to start a weight loss journey, or if there is any coaches listening, just always start everything super high. You know, start calories high, start everything in the opposite direction, basically. Of course, when you finish off transformations, it's going to have a crisscross effect. You know, you're going to bring calorie levels down, expenditure levels up, but that's the road of the SAID principle. Types of nutritional programming we're going to run through is we're going to go through training day, non-training day splits. These are most suitable for potentially muscle building and long-term fat losses. We're going to run through high carb, medium carb, low carb split rotations, more suitable for fat loss and could potentially be photo shoot transformations. And then we're going to look through a four low carb, one high carb split rotation, which is something that Brian Hickey, my old boss, invented, and something that I have used myself with numerous clients, and it's an absolutely fantastic tool for fat loss, causing such a large demanding response of negative energy balance across a week. And with the one high carb increase, really just trying to focus on, you know, refueling glycogen stores, giving you a 1 day essential diet break throughout the week. It's a really good approach, but a very, very aggressive approach as well. So just note that the following slides are going to be based on carbohydrate content. And when we're talking about calories at the end, the calories are going to be based off a male eating 200 grams of protein and 50 grams of fat. So that's going to equal like a baseline of 1,200 calories. So when we're looking at training day, non-training day split rotations, as you can see here, there's a really big a fluctuation of calorie intake. Spiking calories and carbohydrate grams to 800 grams on a training day, dropping to 400 grams on the non-training day. So when we're talking about our training day, non-training day, and we're talking about muscle building, of course, you know, we need to keep them consistently fed throughout the week. They need to have high levels of food utilization present to allow adequate glycogen store to be present for, you know, protein synthesis to occur, for that response of muscle building to be there. We do not need high levels of carbohydrate intake on non-training days. As you can see down here, the NTD is your non-training day, because utilization of food is going to be lower. You know, if you had 800 grams of carbohydrates on your training day, you certainly don't need 800 grams of carbohydrates on your non-training day. So I think a very good approach to a training day, non-training day split rotation is to essentially cook carbohydrate content in half, because the utilization is not there. If we look at the kind of total calorie intake over a week, you know, with the training day, 800 grams of carbs, non-training day, 400 grams of carbs, we're totaling at about 26,000 calories over a 7-day period. When we're looking at the high carb, medium carb, and low carb split rotation, what we're trying to do here is input, you know, 2 to 3, depending on the week, fed days per week, where it's not as aggressive as a training day, or it's not as kind of feeding as a training day, non-training day split, but you are now creating much bigger fluctuations of calories on a low carb day or a rest day. So how I would usually program a high carb, medium carb, low carb rotation: high carbs would potentially be on like a leg day where the demand is going to be a lot higher. Medium carb could potentially be a push or like a shoulders and arms day, where again, utilization of food isn't as prevalent as it needs to be on a high carb day. Low carb day then is going to be a rest day. So as you can see here, if we've done legs, now carbohydrate intake will be at 700 grams. And again, this is an adaptation to your training day split. So when we're talking about the role of a transformation, I'm going to bring you down the nutritional coaching role of a transformation right now. This is a muscle building phase. Think back to that prime position. Neil in the very first picture. Neil straight away onto a non-training day, non-training day. 800 grams of carbs on his training day, 400 grams of carbs on his non-training day. I then made an adaptation. So on his high days, I've only pulled him back by 100 grams of carbs. For him, that's still a really, really big feed per week. It's not that much. It's only 400 calories off his day. It's a really, really good drop off. Now, on his medium carb days, which would have replicated similar to his non-training day, I've dropped him down to 500 calories and then bottomed out at 200 grams of carbs on his low carb day. So we're creating much bigger fluctuations. Again, think back to the training day. We only really had 2 fluctuationary effects of carb content. Now we have 3. Total calories now for the week are 22,000. So on his training day, non-training day, he was 26,000 calories. Now just adding in that high carb, medium carb, low carb rotation, we have now added to the energy balance of subtracting 4,000 calories from his overall week. Now we have kind of the most aggressive approach, which would be the 4 low carb, 1 high carb split rotation. Again, keeping the carbohydrate content the same on his low carb day, just as the high carb, medium carb, low carb. He's sitting at now 200 grams of carbs. Every fifth day, we spike him up to 800 grams, which was similar to his training day, non-training day. Think back to that muscle building split. So it's very similar in its approach of amounts. Just the allowance of fluctuation now is going to be a hell of a lot bigger. When we run this for low carb, we're really trying to deplete glycogen stores by running low carbs so consistent. But this is a very aggressive approach. Giving a client 1 fed day per week from a fat loss perspective is very, very important. If I have them on 200 grams of carbs, then I 4 times the amount for their high carb day. They're going to refuel up glycogen store. Glycogen store can last for anywhere from kind of 24 to 72 hours. So if you give them adequate glycogen, they're going to be full for 3 days. And remember, we're running 4 low, 1 high here. So on potentially the 4th day, they might feel, they can't get a pump in the gym or they can't contract muscle. They might have a little drop in energy, but that's okay because the next day then is a fed approach. Now bottoming out at 16,400 calories. So when we look at our overall weekly summary, again, this is going down the road of a transformation. And this is something that you can implement right away, and understanding that over potentially a 12-week period here, without changing anything in food intake, keeping the same food plans, just reorganizing carbohydrate intake and reorganizing the structure of how you spike carbs, drop carbs, and bottom out carbs. Look at the demand that we've caused in the body. Taking it from a weekly intake of 26,000 calories, then dropping down to 22, then with the aggressive approach, bring them down to 16,400. That's a really, really big drop off and such an impact on energy balance that from a physique perspective, they're going to be dropping weight like very, very consistently. And that's without touching cardio. That's just by adding in 3 different approaches that cause much bigger demands than each other on energy balance. And then it's kind of the decision time. Who do we use these approaches on, or where can I use this approach? Sean, it was a muscle building phase. Our approach was to increase calories in an incremental approach using a training day, non-training day split. As we can see, Sean gained a lot of muscle tissue using that fluctuationary effect of calories. And again, on Sean, yeah, he did, in fairness to him. On Sean's transformation, on his non-training days, I think we kept him at about 300 grams of carbs on his non-training day. On his training day now, some training days we spiked to nearly 1,000 grams of carbs. But keeping that utilization of food so low on non-training days, you can still build a hell of a lot of muscle tissue. We have Alex, who I know is watching right now. Alex was a fat loss and transformation. And across the approach, we used high carb and medium carb, low carb split rotations with a declining effect. Alex, again, got an extremely, extremely good result. Got very, very lean, very vascular. Is actually in the middle of his 2nd transformation now. We brought him from this into a building phase, and now we're bringing them back down into that transformation phase again. But again, that was the approach used. Alex. Then we have Gracie, again, that photo shoot client who can handle a very aggressive approach. Think back to the very first slide we saw of Grace. The number one thing I said was Grace's mental strength was able to handle a transformation diet. Grace was strong enough to run 4 low carb days in a row with a fed day every 5th day. And of course, the result speaks for himself. Grace got extremely lean, photo shoot ready, one of the leanest clients I've ever gotten, but just down to that approach, a very aggressive approach of a 4 low, 1 high. Then we have Miss Courtney Smith, who ran a 16-week diet. Now, this is where we can implement 2 different forms of the transformation into one another. We ran a 6-week mini cut at the start with that high carb, medium carb, low carb rotation, then transitioning into a 10-week 4 low, 1 high system. And again, got an absolutely amazing result. Got very lean. For a female to have abs, obliques, vascularity was so, so important. And again, a really, really good kind of final product. So when we're looking back on, when to implement these and who to implement these on, just think back to your starting point. Where are you right now? Are you like Sean, who needs to build? who can handle, really, really high food, but then that drop down effect? Are you like Alex, who needs to have those fluctuations in calories there to still keep him fed, that we can promote muscle growth while in a deficit for the remainder of the week? Are you like Grace, who's extremely mentally strong, who can handle a long duration of low carbs with then a spike in high carbs? Or are you like Courtney, who wasn't transformation ready just yet, who needed to run a high carb, medium carb, low carb split rotation, then into a 10-week aggressive approach? And running, identification of the process is super important, and just something that I think we all need to be very, very careful of when we are identifying it around ourselves. I'm just gonna pass you back over to Josh now, so we can run through some training. Josh, how do I make you back the host again?
I'm the host, bud.
You are? Right, cool.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. And we have a couple of questions as well. I'm just trying to find the chat box now. Can you see the chat box there? Here we go. So
yeah.
we'll try to run through them at the moment, because I think we'll be quite pressed for time towards the end. But so the first one was, if a client was quite lean to start and the goal is to increase tissue, would you go straight into a surplus, or go into deficit before? So yeah, definitely. But then sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, you're right. Again, when we're talking about an ideal build transformation client, we're looking for someone who's lean. So getting a client who we're going to run through a recomp phase when I come back to nutritional adaptations. When we're talking about recomposition, that's somebody who might have had a little bit of body fat, but has to get a little bit leaner to then progress on forward. If you have someone who's lean, a male coming in with a six pack, fill them full of food.
Yeah, absolutely. Client's calories were at about 1900, and she was around 73, and said it was way too high and she could never eat that. And then before that, she was at 13 or 1400 for about 4 months and not losing any weight. So that would be a big red flag for me. If we're on 13 or 1400 calories and we're not dropping body fat levels, then like you've just answered the question, I think definitely coming out into a diet break, just like we kind of have here, somewhere even like 14. If we're really bottoming out at 1400 calories and putting cardio in there and we're not losing any body fat, come out of that for 3-4 weeks even, driving calories. Maybe 1900 is quite high. Maybe even in around there would be nice, just to kind of again resensitize calories. Then the mental fatigue and stuff there. Go on.
Just one thing I want to touch on that is when we're speaking about weight loss, weight gain, you have to understand that there's a full hormone effect that goes on behind closed doors that we don't see. When we're talking about weight loss, you have an adrenal gland, and adrenal fatigue is one of the most kind of diminishing factors in people losing weight. Adrenal fatigue can also be caused by high caffeine intake. So if you have a client that has really, really high caffeine intake, has been in a deficit, is not losing weight, you can almost guarantee that adrenal gland has just closed and closed and closed. Adrenal fatigue has set in and they cannot lose any weight. What you need to do is focus on, number one, stress management techniques for that client. Allow them to have proper adaptational response to adrenal function again. And a very, very good sign of this is get them to fully pull away from caffeine for probably 7 to 10 days. Increase calorie levels. If you give them a coffee or a Monster, if they get wired to the moon off that coffee or Monster, you now know that adrenal function is high again, and their ability to lose weight is now going to be back present because they have full adrenal function.
Yeah. So the answer there, definitely trying to bring calories back up 100%. If you just keep pulling, just internally, we're going to murder ourselves pretty much. We need to go into those yo-yos of going down, then coming up, come down, coming up, just like we're kind of bobbing our head in the sea. And the last one is going to be from Ellie. What would be an example of high calories to start with a female? So we'd probably need to see the physique. We'd need to learn about all our previous training experience and biometric data and stuff like that. But so probably it would be unwise for us to answer that question, because I don't think we can actually give the advice. But just trying to look at, trying to find out what they were doing, what they were doing currently, or just trialing out a number that isn't too low. Even if let's say just a complete example, maybe trialing them out on 2000 calories and then 3x300 cardio, and Did it work? No, we stayed exactly the same weight. Then we can either increase cardio or reduce input, and slowly take a long-term process of that one. And then it's all going to be trial and error. Okay, we jump back in.
Yeah, off you got it.
Let's do it. So training systems is what we're going to run through here. And what we're going to touch on, the three elements of training systems that you want to think of is intensity, volume, and then frequency. So training systems is the approach, the phrase that I like to use is all paths lead to Rome. And because there's so many ways of getting there, but just trying to pick one that suits yourself or suits the client, all ways will always work. So frequency, something that we look at is trying to hit each muscle group 2 times a week or 4 times every 14 days. I know Adam likes to use this kind of rotation where it'd be kind of a 14-day block, whereas I like to use the kind of a 7-day, but it's pretty much exactly the same. As long as you're hitting 2 times a muscle group 2 times a week or 4 times every 14 days, you're going to be in optimal position to gain some tissue. So the splits that we can look at is push-pull legs, rest, push-pull legs. That'll be 6 days a week, 2 times push, 2 pull, 2 legs. Upper, lower, which is the one I've been favoring over the last number of years for myself and for clients training. Then upper, lower, and then a full body, which is actually a really nice one that I've been utilizing quite a bit for 3-day splits. And then a push, pull, full body. So a push would be anything from chest, shoulders, triceps, and quads. And then a pull would be back, biceps, hamstrings, and glutes. And then a full body approach. So each muscle group is still getting hit 2 times a week. And then the last one would be a full body. So rather than doing upper, lower there, and you'd only be hitting each muscle group 1 time a week, and your frequency would be off slightly. So anything can work. Again, one of the main ones that I saw was Peter came into me, again, just really bad relationship with training, hated it. You can see from his face here, and gained quite a lot of body fat over the last number of years. And we had programmed in 3, but I knew that he only did 2 sessions with me a week, and I knew he never did the 3rd. So I can tell you with 100% confidence that this was a 2 times a week transformation. And just got food into a good place, nothing crazy. And then his output was always quite high. He loved walking. And it can really show that, again, like we said, we don't need to move food too much, but just improve our output and increase our output over time. And then adding a day in every couple of weeks and taking diet breaks in particular was key for Peter for mental fatigue in tracking. A simple program done with significant adherence, intensity, and execution will create far superior results than a really complex program with poor adherence, intensity, and execution. And like Adam said earlier, if you throw the kitchen sink at them and go, listen, buddy, this is your first day training, yeah? Yeah, perfect, okay, cool. We're gonna do 6 days a week. You're gonna implement 6 cardio sessions and you're gonna eat 1,000 calories. Never gonna work, you know? So trying to start off really easy and just making sure we tick the boxes from a mental aspect as well. Ticking boxes is a really good thing. If it's something either on the to-do list or if Adam checks in with one of his clients and they text back on, yep, I hit my 2 sessions this week and I hit my 3 cardio sessions this week and I hit my calories. And then they feel really good about it. And that's boxes ticked. And then they can bring that into next week. Whereas if we set the bar too high and we don't hit it, mentally we're gone straight away. Nice and easy to start, and then you can increase the kind of volume, frequency, or intensity. So the exercise selection should always revert back to the questionnaire. What equipment do you have available? Ones that you feel comfortable in with no pain, or that you can get into mobility wise. So again, we're not programming hack squats or pendulum squats. If we, 1, don't have the equipment in the gym, or 2, don't have any active range in the hip or have some lower back issues, and we need to work around it. So instead of hitting that, we can use a leg extension where there's going to be no spinal loading, but we can really contract the quad hard there. Exercise that you enjoy doing. And like we said earlier, this is really important, especially in the current climate. And to get exercise that gets you up and out, because motivation is going to be a little bit lower than usual. That's okay, but just try and put stuff in that you enjoy and look forward to training. And exercises that you have the skill to execute, really, really important one as well. Again, from a coaching perspective, we don't put in, again, like I always refer back to something like a snatch grip RDL, because if our execution level is quite low, do you have enough that you have the stability for? So important as well to have internal stability, or something where, like picking exercises at the beginning of our training career, where much more stability is going to lead to much better mind to muscle connection. And then, so that means no squatting on bossy balls. So we do not want to be, I've seen you do this a few times.
My favorite saying, you cannot fire a cannon from a canoe. You cannot fire a muscle from an unstable platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And this geezer here, squatting 100 kilos on the bossy ball, the risk of injury is so high. This chap, I can see a few broken teeth coming through here. And then this guy's the last one. And we can see that just this sort of stuff is just crazy. To make sure that we're not doing this, the risk reward is so through the roof. And I'd like to say that there's a reason why all three of them are male. Women are much cleverer, and actually I'd go as far as intense trainers. All the clients that I have in that are women. All for the gram, yes, Mick. All the women trainers that I have in all seem to train really, really cleverly and with high intensity. Yeah. Which brings me to my next point. Intensity and volume have an inverse relationship. So if we take, let's say, a hack squat, for instance, and let's say we put 100 kilos on a hack squat, and that means we can only get 3 reps out. The intensity, the load, 100 kilos is very high, but the volume we can only get is three reps to failure. Now, let's say we put 40 kilos on. So the intensity is much lower, and I go, let's go to failure, and we do 15 reps. So then the volume intensity will always be fluctuated. So higher intensity, lower volume, or higher volume, lower intensity. And this is really key to get an understanding of, in my view, and I think Adam would say as well. The more experience you have, the less volume you need to grow new tissue. And from a recovery standpoint and Dom's perspective, you want to try and do the minimum effective dose, as little volume as possible while making results. Train to failure, again, the more experience we get, we need to get to that failure point or else past it. I know, especially when myself and Adam would train, we definitely push ourselves to that failure point and then guide it for an extra 1 or 2. So train partners are so important. And make sure that we hit all ends of the hypertrophy scale, so that from a neurological standpoint and then a metabolic stimulus, we want to hit that kind of 6, 8, 9 rep range, and then we also want to hit that kind of 10 to 15 rep range. So rather than doing that kind of flat loading 3x8, which we will touch on, or 3x10, the thing I like to, or the kind of phrase I like to use is, imagine you sat an exam, let's say you're sitting your leaving cert or any exam or whatever, and you get 100% in the test. Then after you've done, the examiner says, do you want to sit that test again? And you said, no, I got 100%, so I can't get anything more from that. And the same is pretty much if you hit it, let's say your program 4x8 on a bench press, and that 8th rep, you squeeze out at 80 kilos and you go to failure on the 8th rep. You can't get a better stimulus than that. It's impossible. And you're only going to start reducing. You're going to try to do that again. You're going to get 6 reps and then 4, then 3, then 2. So rather than trying to hit that kind of 3x8 or 4x8, why don't we do something like one set of 6 to 8, max out, high stimulus, neurological stimulus, and then backing off into a lower weight and doing a 1x12 to 15. And this is kind of scale that I like to use, and I think Adam would say the same, that we both like to use this kind of scale to hit both ends.
Absolutely.
Rest pauses and drop sets, again, really nice ways to implement a little bit more volume, or else kind of use this kind of one all out set. So I'd be on a bigger, I don't know about you, Adam, but I'd be more inclined to implement a rest pause, because if anyone takes from the previous webinar, intensity is the most important part. So intensity builds density is the phrase. And by reducing, so let's take a leg extension, for example. If we do 8 reps to failure, and then we take the pin out from 70 or whatever, and then put it into 40, and then we bang out a few more reps, you've just reduced the intensity straight away. You've caused more volume and fatigue, yes, but let's say we do a rest pause, means if we do 8 reps to failure, and then we keep the weight exactly where it is, take somewhere between 15 and 25 seconds, and then we try to squeeze out another 4 reps there. Or else have a full set. So next one that I'm going to talk about is, don't be afraid to program one all-out set. So let's say, again, you can say, I need to do 20 reps on a leg extension, and you can take 2 rest pauses to get there. So we do something like 12 reps or 10 reps first, and take 15, 25 seconds, and 5 reps, and then 5 reps again. So their total working set was 20, but you've only done 1 set there. Don't be afraid to do 1 set. Less is more massively. One of the programs here that we looked at with Justin was just this kind of low volume. We did a 3-day full body approach. We came in quite soft, and he was definitely one of those clients that Adam was talking about, where I could see there was tissue on there, but we just need to drive a little bit of body fat to go into a reverse dieting reverse diet back out into a kind of transition, and got so lean so quick. But the intensity, he'd lifted a little bit, but his execution was a little bit poor, and we brought that up with intensity 2 sessions. It was so little. It was 2 or 3 sets in exercise, and really just took everything to absolute failure. And his results speak for themselves there. Got really, really, really lean, to be fair to him. And then the other scale is low level experience, much more simplistic program. Something like that flat loading, 3x8, 3x10, 3x12. If it's our first couple of years training, even if it's our first time training, 3x1 will grow new tissue. It's a new stimulus. You will grow tissue. However, that will kind of wheel off after a while. Something like that 3x8, 3x10, 3x12 will work. And training near failure, you don't have to go to failure. Again, you have to evaluate where our nervous system recoverability is during the session. So let's say it's our first time in the gym and we have a lower body session. If I take Adam for his first training session ever and he's doing lower body, and let's say he has hack squat, leg press, hamstring curl, leg extension, let's say even 4 exercises. Do I bring him to absolute failure on the first exercise? No, of course not, because he's never going to be able to recover from that for the rest of the session. You have to try look at that and look at the recoverability and intra-session and then in between sessions as well. This is time to kind of improve your mind to muscle connection, use load that we can maintain execution for, and standardize the rep. Every rep should look the same, whether it's the 12th or it's the first. Make your last rep look better than your first is something that I like to use with clients. Really trying to nail their execution, and then if we can't, then the load is too heavy. Usually, because we're not working to that failure point, we can make rest times a little bit shorter, and therefore have a little bit more volume in the session. How much volume per muscle group is a kind of an iffy one. I don't really like to give as many recommendations, but I'd like to say minimum effective dose. So anywhere between, like, I can even train a body part maybe 4 sets in a week and see progression there. But that's because the intensity that I bring is much, much higher. So it should be more about the intensity rather than the volume in my thought process. But anywhere between maybe 6, 10, 12 sets or something for most group in the early doors. But again, it depends on the program you're using. So I'm not going to give many recommendations on that one. And then this one's one of my favorite ones. David came into me like really wanted to grow some tissue, and we've done a little bit of body weight training at home. And after 3 months, we drove a lot of tissue on them. And then after that one as well, is 6-month transformation, which was great. And you can see the difference just in physique there, the amount of tissue, in particular his legs, that he drove on. And I'm telling you, even I'll say this even between you and me, Adam, as well. The amount of intensity, I've never seen anyone who hasn't trained before bring that much intensity to sessions, like rinsing sets dry to failure and just going places that I don't even go in some sets. Like, and just that, like, that was just, it was amazing to see the intensity they can bring for such a low level of training. And I asked him, David, can I put in that photo of you? And he said, only if you put in the photo of my legs. So I had to put that one in. Definitely bigger quads than me at this stage, to be fair to him. And that's just meticulous execution and really, really driving and pushing intensity hard. His sets were only maybe two or three sets in exercise because the intensity was so high. Additional points to note, how are we doing time-wise? Yeah, we're okay. Resistance profiles and all ranges being challenged. So looking at like a leg extension, or let's say even a hamstring, for instance, because we used leg extension before, we look at trying to get it into, so like let's say hamstring curl, the further you pull that heel towards the bum, the more tension is created and the more challenging the exercise becomes in the shortened position. Where then you want to also have an exercise with more challenge in the lengthened position. So let's say in RDL. So making sure we don't just challenge short range all the time when we're missing a big piece of the pie. So making sure you understand about resistance profiles and different ranges being challenged. Unilateral and bilateral balance. So making sure that if we have injuries in knees and hips, let's say we need to probably put in a little bit more unilateral work, or if that's a kind of a problem area, or somewhere in around our upper body is a little bit weaker, we can see that the bench press, when you push, it's right arm going up first and then the left arm needs to catch up to the right. So then we implement a little more dumbbell work. Anterior, posterior balance or bias. So we can see from our first slides, the analysis that we could see marked with a big anterior lean. And we need to bias posterior movements, so pulling movements. Compound isolations. The compounds are going to be your meat and potatoes, but don't be scared to put in isolations. But what I will say is that, let's say if we are only training 2 times a week, you want to get more bang for your buck through exercises. So we're not going to do calf raises, lateral raises, and that sort of stuff in the program, whereas we can get so much more from, let's say, a squat or a hinge pattern or a hip thrust or something, or an overhead press or a shoulder press. The machine versus free weights. Don't be scared of machines. Machines are amazing, amazing piece of equipment. Because when we're stuck under a barbell, although it's a great exercise, a barbell bench press, we have to think about 20 different things. Where's the barbell going? Is it going to fall on my head? Where is it on my hand? Is it going out front? Is it going to the side? But then let's say we take a Smith machine or a chest press. It can only go in one way. So we only need to think of 2 variables. It's keeping the shoulder blades back and pinned, and then driving the elbow across the body. And then you can get that mindful muscle much easier. Do we do cardio on a bulk? As Adam said, absolutely 100%. And then just touching on those points again, so it improves our recovery. From a cardiovascular perspective, the fitter you are, let's say you do a hack squat to failure, and then you have programs to use, I need to get going kind of thing in an hour, so you take 3 minutes. There's no way you're going to be able to kind of hit that level of performance again if your cardiovascular levels aren't good. So the fitter you are, the quicker you can recover intra-set, which means that you're able to keep your performance higher for a longer period of time. Increases our ATP production, which is again pretty much our performance in the gym, the energy molecule for performance, or the energy production for performance, which is what creatine does, fat mobilization. And then also a few studies that I've seen recently that the more cardio you implement, apparently it's relatable to a higher pain tolerance. So kind of getting into those last couple of reps, can I do another rep, one more rep kind of thing, and your ability to withstand that pain is a little bit higher, which is a nice study. Do we do cardio and cutting body fat? Absolutely. Didn't underline the AB there, just notice now. So the output is 3 by 300 calories to start, like we said, and then you can evaluate increase or decrease. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it is broke, add another day of cardio, as the saying goes. Here's a nice stat for you: 3,500 calories in 1 pound of body fat. So how do we get there? So if we, let's say, if we're cutting 500 calories from our diet over 7 days a week, we've got there, but then we haven't utilized output at all. And I'd always be a bigger believer that we can either reduce input or increase output, but I think we both say that we need to increase our output as much as we can, because we keep cutting calories. If we cut 500 calories straight off the bat, our performance is going to take a massive decrease. Therefore, we can't hold on to or grow new muscle tissue if our performance is decreased and our weights are all going down in the gym. So what we like to do is try maybe 3 by 300 calories is 900 calories. And then if we look to try get the rest, 2,400 calories from our food is going to be somewhere about 350 calories a day in a deficit. And then steps, my step count again, just use this as a kind of an in-round figure to try and get for most desk workers. Try get 10,000 steps a day. If it's working, great. And let's say if that 3 by 300 calories cardio isn't, and the 350 calorie deficit is not working, then we know we can look at another avenue, is our output through steps, and try to increase that to 15,000 a day. And then you can increase that rather than asking them to do another day cardio, which might be a little bit tougher. One transformation that stands out in terms of cardio is Holly. Over 4 weeks, I'm not going to even say that's week 1, and that was week 4 again. And we looked at that, we evaluated, and we saw that our output was just too low. So we increased our steps to try and hit that 10,000 figure on a consistent basis, because it was so low because she's a desk worker. And then also trying to put in runs, and we incrementally brought, like we always say, started off with 2 runs a week, and then increased to 3 because she loved running. Nothing against running, but sometimes it's not the best thing to do, but she loved it. So the enjoyment factor is there, and it's much more adherable. Definitely drove off a lot of body fat there, and then pushed in. I think we went a couple more weeks, and then we reverse dieted back out. That was a really, really good transformation, all down to her cardio. Last thing we're going to run through, and then I'll jump over to Adam to finish, is going to be check-in evaluation. So something that we both would do on a weekly basis with clients, and even for ourselves, we need to look at certain data. And the main bulk of my check-ins are spent in how is our sleep, how is our stress, what stress management interventions have we done during the week, our daylight exposure, and our mood. And these are all so relatable, and you'll see from Instagram, I've always put up these kind of points, and they all are, if sleep is in a really good place, our stress level is going to be quite low. And our daylight exposure is upwards of 60 to 90 minutes a day, let's say. And then our mood is always going to be good. Our energy level is going to be good. But let's say if our sleep is poor, or stress is very high, we're just going to bounce back into our sleep. And our day doesn't mean we're not getting our daylight exposure. And our mood is poor, our energy is poor, our ghrelin is high, we're eating too much food, our performance in work is bad, our performance in training is bad. It just has this massive knock-on effect. Nailing down those 5 is so critical. A training, how's our execution? So how is our training during the week? Have we hit all our sessions? How is our execution? What's our muscle soreness like? How is our recoverability kind of thing? Can we implement a little more? And this will always revert back to the top as well. If our sleep and our nutrition is poor, our muscle soreness will likely be a bit more apparent. Progression, what numbers will we hit? Our cardio completed, our steps completed for the week. And this is literally word for word. Any clients that are on this will know they get this on a week-to-week basis. Any visual changes in physique, so we can adapt and evaluate through that. So we have a look at photos to do that as well for us. And then calorie tracking, quality nutrition, our appetite and digestion. So trying to look at how consistently we're hitting our quality of foods, in particular, our calorie tracking as well, how our appetite is for the week. And I know, let's say one of my clients last week, Katie, said that in between lunch and dinner, she was getting a massive hunger spike. So what I said is, let's just program around that hunger spike. And if we know that we're going to be hungry there, put that in as your first bit of food for the day, a 200 calorie snack, a protein bar, a fruit salad, some eggs or something. And then we can work around that, maybe reduce a little bit of food in each of our other meals, because the gap between our lunch and dinner, because we're work, was much bigger. So I think that's me. And I'm going to switch back over to Adam now. And if I remember how to do this. Here we go. I don't know how to do this again.
To make me the host?
Yeah. Can you screen share there now?
No. Let me try. Hang on. Is that working?
Yeah. Spot on.
Right, okay. Right. So you can see my nutritional adaptations, yeah?
Yeah, perfect.
Right, perfect. So we're going to run through, just quickly, I'm going to run through refeeds, diet breaks, recomposition phases, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time on reverse dieting and water depletion protocols. Water depletion protocols are, basically the final phase of a transformation. How can we excrete water from the body? How can we get that final look to a very, very dry out physique? First of all, when we're looking at refeeds or free meals, just one thing that I want to just kind of put forward here when we're speaking about refeeds or free meals is that not everyone needs to be refed. If you're in a calorie surplus, if you're on a training day, non-training day rotation, if you're on a kind of even a high carb, medium carb, low carb, you don't need to be refed. You don't need to have free meals off plan, cheat meals, cheat days, because you essentially are getting on a weekly basis exactly what is needed and required from a refeed. So a refeed or a free meal are used to refill glycogen stores, also used to boost metabolic function from a catabolic to an anabolic state. Refeeds are to be used when there is a stall in weight, or when a client finds it really hard to contract or stabilize load. So this is really important for coaches when to identify more food needs to be had during an aggressive diet. If you're going through, a set of bicep curls with your client and they have get no pump, they cannot feel that muscle contract, they cannot feel that swelling or burn effect from the muscle, it basically means that glycogen has been completely depleted. You need to refill glycogen stores regularly when you are in an aggressive dieting phase or when you have a client who is getting quite lean. Like one of my clients, Sarah Jane, I'm posting regularly about at the moment, who's very, very lean. We're just about finalizing her transformation. We're implementing a refeed tomorrow because as a coach, there's a couple of things that I noticed. During this week, we had a stall in weight. there was an inability to contract the muscle, or a feeling of contraction during the muscle. So she needs to be refed. When we implement refeeds, it can have a huge effect on trying to reboost that metabolic function again. So bringing you from that catabolic state back into an anabolic state again. We're in that anabolic state. It's very, very easy to build muscle, very easy to drop fat as well. It can have a huge kind of focus and huge importance on a shift change in weight. So if you have a client or yourself, if you're in an aggressive dieting phase, say you're on that 4 low 1 high approach, what I'd recommend is for your refeed to usually kind of 4 times the amount of low carbs that are in that week. So if you're running 200 grams of carbs a day, kind of a refeed approach I think is appropriate would be 1600 carbs over a 2-day split. You can have 1 meal off plan. It's totally fine once it's substantial in carbohydrates and substantial in protein. I think a 2-day refeed effect is the best way to possibly do it, because again, when we think about how long glycogen stores stay in the system, it can be anywhere from 72 hours. If you refeed over 2 days, it's going to just prolong that effect over, like I said, an even longer process. So like I said, trying to refeed over the 2 days versus a 1 day is a better effect. And you're trying to, like I said, 4 times the low carb amounts for that week over your 2 days. So in this case, the client was having 200 grams of carbs. So we would have had 800 grams of carbs per day. So it would have been 1600 grams of carbs over the 2 days of the refeed. Diet breaks are to be used in both long-term and, gaining and fat loss phases. They will be in a fat loss phase. We will increase calories to a baseline where we will return to homeostatic range. In a gaining phase, we will decrease calories for kind of 14 to 21 days, again, returning to homeostatic range. Again, think homeostatic range is where your body will go into a state of preservation. So if you are in a weight loss phase, we are returning to homeostasis, so you stop losing weight. If you are in a gaining phase, you are returning to homeostatic range to stop gaining weight. And that essentially is kind of the approach to diet breaks, is to return to homeostatic range, to completely reset the clock, to add in potentially a new approach as well. So when we're talking about the kind of tier effect of nutritional coaching, when we have our training day, non-training day, high carb, medium carb, low carb, 4 low and high, in between those, I would have introduced a diet break. If I have a client in a gaining phase, I would have reintroduced a diet break to bring him back to homeostatic range, then would have introduced a high carb, medium carb, low carb rotation. Again, after that, bringing him back to homeostatic range, giving him a break for 14 to 21 days, then reintroducing again the new phase of dieting. So it gives you a chance to reintroduce that new and next approach. For gaining weight, it can reintroduce or re-increase sensitivity to insulin and can also really boost adrenal function. When we're talking about recomp phases, this is a question that was asked earlier on. What is a recomposition phase? So if you had a client who wanted to build tissue, what we have to do is, again, just establish that better level of body composition. When we have that better level of body composition, we will have improved sensitivity to insulin, improved food utilization, aiming to prime the body for a gaining phase. I think that's a very, very important one. Mentally getting yourself ready for the increases in calories as well. And always know, not everyone is ready to gain. I think that's a very, very important take-home point. If anyone listening who, was in a position who you thought, I want to move towards a gaining phase, this was an essay's goal. When an essay has done a couple of transformations with me now, but this initial time, her main goal was to build tissue. She wanted to move into an aggressive gaining phase. So what we done was we went for a 10-week mini cut, then an 8-week gaining phase, and we increased 6 kilo overall. So from the picture to the left to the picture on the right, in the picture on the red, she was 6 kilo heavier than she was on the left. And as you can see, legs, glutes, quads, clearly a much higher level of muscle mass. Waistline was a lot smaller. So you can nearly call that a transformation itself. But that, in an ideal scenario, is your optimal recomp phase. We have established better levels of body composition. We got her leaner, and then we increased muscle mass on the back end of that. When we're talking about kind of the end process now, or the final process of these approaches, we have to get ready for the reverse. What happens on the back end of an aggressive dieting phase. If I'm, coming from finish a photo shoot tomorrow, what happens from kind of day 1 to day 14 on the nutrition end? And nothing happens. I don't change food plans initially off the get-go from day 1, because your body is going to be in such a prime position, especially after a photo shoot, a bodybuilding show, any sort of a aggressive dieting phase. You're going to have probably 2 or 3 quite substantial meals. You might go out for a nice lunch, you might go out for a nice dinner, you might snack on a couple of things. That has to be rectified before you move into any sort of an increasing process. If you want to talk about completely disrupting gut health, gut function, and adding on water, adding on an immediate extremely high level of body fat, it would be to have 2 or 3 meals off plan and go completely into a gaining phase. So what I like to do is, for potentially maybe a 10 to 14 day period, is keep food intake the same. Don't change food. Leave them at the last week of the plan or second last week of the plan, whatever it may be. Leave them on that for a week. Let them rectify any significant weight gain that they would have had. After we have ran through like the rehydration process, which I'm going to run through in a moment, your body is going to naturally hold more water because, of course, you've added water in. This can hugely help as well the amount of water gain you would have gotten after a rehydration process. Week 2 to 4, then we would have increased calories on a daily basis. I think a good number to run with for females is 200 calories a day, 500 calories a day for males, and decreasing cardio by about 10 to 15%. So that's not a big drop off in cardio, but it is a big increase in food intake. And if you think at the end of week 4 for a female, you could be only 200 calories up and a subtraction of 10 to 15%. But running this very slow and steady process is going to help you keep any significant gains that you would have made during that aggressive cut. If you ran through a 16-week diet, busted your balls to get in the best shape of your life, you can ruin that in 3 days.
Yeah, absolutely. So important, guys.
Yeah, by overly eating, by having quite substantial meals off plan. You have to have at least, I think, a 10-week approach post pictures or post final day to keep what you earned. Week 4 to 8, then again, another increase. I would have, again, 200 calories for female, 500 calories for male, now with a total decrease of cardio anywhere from 30 to 40%. And week 8 to 10, then we would have increased calories to a surplus or re-established homeostatic range where there is no change, and then shifting scheduled cardio to knee focused. So as you can see, in the reverse diet, we essentially completely reversed the approach that we ran through in a cutting phase. Cutting phase, we start off food intake low, we increase, start off cardio low, increase, and there's constant incremental and decreasing approaches, and that exact effect has to be replicated in the off chance. And, I know a lot of my clients that, kind of 8 to 10 weeks post pictures still are in phenomenal condition because they follow a strict dieting approach. And again, I can't stress, you don't work your arse off for 16 weeks to have a complete immediate effect after 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. It's like an exit strategy, guys. You have to have one in place. It's even more so than the diet, because we've both seen, Adam, you can just ruin it in 3 days.
Absolutely. This is where, kind of holiday preps stuff can potentially be a bit of a tough one. If too aggressive of an approach is used on a holiday, again, you have to think back to the very, very first slides where we went through identifying the transformation. Is a holiday diet a need for an aggressive approach? No, because as soon as you land in Ibiza or Marbella or wherever you're going to go, everything is going to go out the window, and so is body composition, because the approach maybe have been too aggressive. And just some key considerations when we're speaking about reverse dieting is, increasing calories while holding body composition is very, very important. We're trying to increase hormone function for males, testosterone, females, estrogen. To reset new goals as well during this process is very important, because again, if you think week 2 to 4, you're still in that dieting mindset. There's only been an increase of calories of 200 for a female, 500 for a male. There's only been a decrease of 10 to 15% of overall cardio. This is the perfect time to establish new goals, prime yourself for that gaining phase you're about to enter. And just because you're in such a good mindset, I do think this is a fantastic phase to start to, optimally move into a gaining phase and reset that new goal. And again, reset health markers. Also, when we run through a photo shoot protocol, an aggressive dieting approach, whatever it may be, you are going to have implications to health markers potentially. Blood pressure might decrease or increase. HRV levels might be a little bit skewed. Blood glucose readings might be a little bit skewed as well. For males, I do think it's important to get blood work done, just because testosterone levels can be extremely bottomed out when it comes to an aggressive dieting phase. And menstrual cycle function for a female is hugely important as well. I'm very, very, adamant about readings of menstrual cycle function from my female clients, especially in the latter end of dieting phases, because if I see any sign of an upset menstrual cycle, I will pull them out immediately from that dieting phase. We'll return back to homeostatic range for 10 to 15 days. We will improve sleep. We will improve stress. I will get them to track HRV readings. And then once we see an improved level of menstruation on the next cycle, then they have the green light to re-enter back into that phase again.
Yeah.
When we're going through water depletions next, so this is going to be the kind of final that we're going to run through, guys, and this is going to be for anyone who was ever thinking about doing like a photo shoot, show preparation, something that you need to get yourself in a very, very lean position for. This essentially is the process that we'll use. So when we're talking about water depletions, what are we trying to do? We're trying to deplete water, sodium, and potassium from the body. There may be use of diuretics in here as well. Diuretics is more of an extreme approach, potentially bodybuilding show, not really for photo shoots. And one massive one is, do not ever use this approach without myself, Josh, or any other client coach to guide you through this, because a lot can go wrong and you need to have someone who's been there, done it, wore the t-shirt, and understands the process inside and out to get you out of a potential hole you might be in. Some key terminology we need to understand before moving into this. ADH means your antidiuretic hormone. So if you ever hear me speak about ADH, it basically means the antidiuretic hormone that can shut off diuresis. Aldosterone is the hormone responsible for water depletion and secretion. So aldosterone and ADH, I want you to think of taps. ADH turns the tap off. So when you turn the tap off, no water can get out. Aldosterone turns the tap on. It allows the kidneys to secrete water. Sodium will aid aldosterone function. So when we think about, the final week of bodybuilding shows, the final week of photo shoot preparations, we increase sodium levels. That will then increase aldosterone function, and potassium will aid upregulation of ADH. So basically, sodium keeps the tap turning on. Potassium can help turn the tap off. When we're looking at
do you mind if I jump in for 1 second?
Yeah.
Sorry, I unfortunately will have to leave the conversation. I'm going to leave you to finish this one because I have a client now at 7:30 on a Zoom. But thank you so much for watching, guys. We really appreciate it. Adam's going to finish this off for you. And like in the last webinar, we'd love to offer you guys a little bit of a discounted rate. Whereas if you want to jump onto any online packages that we have, you use the code webinar. And she'll give you 10% off. I'm sure Adam will do the same. But listen, thank you so much for jumping on. We really appreciate it. And Adam, hopefully you're okay to take it on for the last bit.
Yeah, I've only like 3 slides left on here.
Okay,
right,
cheers, guys. Thank you.
All right, so when we're looking at basically what can happen